DisruptEd is a platform that is meant to challenge the status quo of the education industry, the status quo of the education experience and the outcomes of it. My name is Dr. Adil Zaruni. I'm a serial entrepreneur coming from multiple industries, and now we are challenging the education industry.
First of all, thank you so much, Nadia, for coming all the way in the heat. And I appreciate you joining us today in DisruptEd. DisruptEd is a platform for us to challenge the status quo on education and try to investigate what could be the future of education for generations to come. I don't know where to start really, Nadia, because I do know
First
that
of all,
you have...
it's much nicer in here than it was where I was 15 minutes ago. Okay. I was in the middle of the heat on a construction site with no AC. So this is like, I'm thankful to be here, and I really appreciate, I've been to the school before, so congratulations. It's really special.
Thank you so much. I knew of you, but when I went actually to the proper profile, it's way more than what I knew of you. So I know you're involved with the Al-Barari group. You used to head that, and you have the 5 group, and then the Zaya group, and then the Zaya Early Learning.
A lot of real estate construction, yes.
Amazing.
And then a small school.
And all of that with 4 kids, and I'm really interested in seeing, how did this whole thing come to be? I know that you are half Emirati and half British also. So let me go really early in your life, where, how did you grow up in that multicultural family? How important was education, the whole journey there, and going all the way to finding yourself, finding your passion, and getting involved in the family business. And I think that would dictate more than a couple of hours, I would think.
No.
But
we'll keep it simple.
Beautiful.
No, I think, growing up in a multicultural home, I think in my early years, I actually would deny my English mother. It was very like, no, I don't have an English mom. I was very... I was almost embarrassed, that's true, because, I went to the TAD and it was all Emirati families. And I remember I used to sit like at the school play and, I look into the audience and there's my blonde mother and I'm like, shh, show yourself, But actually, that was just me being young and immature. Actually, as I grew older, I came to appreciate that it really gave me the best of both worlds, Like I really understood that my perspective was probably better than... and the exposure I had it gave me so much, whether it's being more tolerant or, just that exposure to different cultures, going to my grandparents' house and having the Christmas celebrations. And then even though my mom was a Muslim, but just that exposure to more than just one culture, I think it really shaped me. So that was, a great thing. And then working in the family business. So I started Al-Barari with my dad in 2004. And then I stayed with that business for only 3.5 years. And then because I think with every family business and family dynamics, it was different when it was just me and my dad and we started the business and we didn't know was it going to succeed or not. And, my family historically has always been in real estate, but like in old Dubai, right? Rentals. Freehold Dubai was a whole new game for us. So I think, because we were starting and there were so many unknowns, I actually had a lot of free reign. Like I was running the show because I think on some level, nobody was sure if it was going to work. And then I think when the business stabilized, the revenue stabilized, we got over the bumps of oh my God, we owe a check to Dubai Land, it's going to bounce. And, there were lots of that in the beginning because, we took a large, yes, we always were successful in real estate in old Dubai, but this was a big transaction for the family. So I think in the beginning while we were setting it up, it was quite smooth for me. But then like with many family businesses, when you start to have more, complications come, right? Everybody has an opinion, things like that. And for me, it was very difficult. And, my father, credit to him, I think he brought us up all with a lot to say. And when you put all of those strong characters in one room, even with me and my father, like I think the dynamic, in other family businesses, if you inherit a business, there's more like respect. Okay, this is the founder of the business, therefore there's more respect for what they say. But for me, it was like, I started this business with you, in my head, wrongly or rightly, and I was young. So, in hindsight, maybe also I didn't behave always correctly, but it created, an issue. So I remember 3 years in, I was like, okay, you know what? I've done my piece. Everybody's, secure. I don't want to lose my relationship with my father, because it was getting to a point where, I'm very close to my father. I speak to him 3-4 times a day. We're very emotionally close. But it was really straining our relationship. So I just said to him, listen, you're the boss or I'm the boss. You be the boss, I'm going to leave. And at that time, I remember, the real estate market was booming. People respected me. And in Abu Dhabi was the next big thing. Everybody was looking at Abu Dhabi. And, I was lucky. I raised equity. I found investors. It was very difficult, because I remember my dad was like, okay, you want to go alone? But you're going to see. Like, no one's going to give you even 1 dirham. I said, okay, fine. No one's going to give me 1 dirham. I'll come back. What's the worst that can happen? So I raised the equity. I started Nurai Island, hit the financial crisis. Oof, that was hard. But it taught me, so that was kind of my journey, like family business. And then I went on my own. And then again, fate. Like I thought to myself, I will never mix family and money. Never. I was very clear. Never again. And then a few years ago, my father had a stroke. And then, so the family, it was very hard on the family. And then because I was the only independent person, like in the family, I think to avoid disputes and things, they asked me again to come back. And then we had a lot of restructuring to do in Al-Barari, and the rest is history. Things are going well. Again, I restabilized the business. I've become a restructuring person. And I gave it, my younger brother took over like a year ago, and I'm focused on my own. So yeah, I've always kind of had my eye a little bit on the family business, but I've tried to stay like independent as well.
That will be a difficult balance to strike.
Yeah, I think now I'm like, okay, you know what, my brother is handling it and it's fine, but yeah.
What about the Zaya Early Learning School?
Yeah.
Where did that come from? Like in all of this
and all the real estate building. So basically, Aylan, my son, he's now 11. When he, 2 years in, I was looking at schools and or nurseries at the time, and I had no opinions on what education should look like. Only I remember I drove to a nursery, and a lot of my friends said, you have to go to this nursery, it's amazing. And I remember walking out, and I remember seeing like all these children, and they were getting into like Rolls Royces and Maybachs and I don't know what, and I was like, I just remember thinking, wow, this Dubai is very different than the Dubai that I grew up with. Yes, I mean, it's multicultural, multi-class, all of that. But like, it was just, I remember just coming home and I said to Kabir, my husband, again, we're also multicultural, right? Like in these kids. And I was thinking like, this is not the Dubai, like this is not what I want to, just from a human value point of view, like everybody having so much. And I remember the children, the way they spoke to the staff, I was like a little bit taken aback and thinking about, my first son, like what values am I imparting and what influence is the greater community once he goes into a nursery or a school, what is that imparting? So it really started purely from that perspective. Like, I believe a school should reflect life and give you exposure to people from all walks of life, all walks of social class, like even the best, my husband, for example, went to Phillips Exeter, which is an institution in the US in terms of schools, right? But even then, you had many, many children who were on scholarship. So you had exposure, and I was worried about my children just being exposed to like one social class and one outlook on life, so it started there. And then I would say, again, if you say like the stars aligned, I was at a coffee with a friend, and there was a woman talking to me about Steiner education, and I'd only heard about Steiner from the biodynamic farming because, again, my family's we're in real estate, but it's very green, right? We've always been a family that loves nature. So I knew, okay, and I remember knowing that Steiner, he farms, his way of, or his recommendation is to farm according to the lunar cycles. And also in our culture, and in the Emirati culture, we have the same thing, durur, like according to the astronomy. So I remember I always thought this man had something interesting to say about life, about farming or whatever. I didn't know he had something to say about education. I went home that night, I started reading, and I called this woman up. I said, listen, tell me more about the school that you had in South Africa, and tell me more about this, and what are you doing in Dubai? And anyways, so I thought the Waldorf curriculum was really interesting. I started a nursery because, I felt like it was fate that this woman came into my life. She had done it before. And I thought, you know what, I'll just start small. Like, we took a villa in Al Manara. It was a nursery. I got Waldorf curriculum approved for the early years. We ended up 30 kids. It was just like, how wrong can I go with like just a few children? And it just started to evolve like that. And then, over the years, what happened is, some of these kids were getting to the age of 6 and 6.5. And I thought, it's just beautiful to, the Waldorf approach, and the pedagogy, forget the curriculum, because, we could talk about many curriculums, but the approach of saying that the first 7 years of life should be about the magic of childhood. For me, that just made so much sense, and you look at Northern Europe and many countries, you don't start formal learning until you're 7. And I just thought the rhythm of the day, and there was just so much beauty and magic in it. But they were getting older, and I was like, oh my God, and all these moms were coming to me and they're like, listen, we're not going from this to a mainstream education. See what, and basically they were like, what are you going to do? I'm like, I don't know. And I felt all of a sudden responsible for all these children because, again, in the Waldorf approach, you start formal learning later, around 6 to 7. And so I felt responsible. How are they even going to go into schools? And that's when I had a discussion with KHDA, and they said to me that there was like a directive to look at progressive education at the time. And that's when I started to take it all seriously. Okay, what does a curriculum look like? What learning objectives? Yes, I like the Waldorf pedagogy, but is it going to work for Dubai? Is it enough academically rigorous? All of those things. And that's how eventually we've ended up with I would say almost like a hybrid of respecting the Waldorf pedagogy of like storytelling, nature-based, which we called hand, heart, head, which is basically, the human values, the empathy, hand, which is a lot of project-based work, as well as the academic rigor. So we've done that, but we've kind of married that to the National Curriculum for England learning objectives, just because we found, I was an IB student. I think IB is great cross-curricularly, but that's kind of my journey. So we've ended up, because we felt that the learning objectives in a primary of National Curriculum in England gives you flexibility on how you get to that learning objective. But we'll see if I progress more, because Waldorf is a cross-curricular approach, and it's very project-basic. You have one lesson block over, let's say, 12 weeks. Yeah, that's been my journey in education.
So where are you?
It started with the human value, me thinking about wanting to have, make a school that's accessible to people, like not position it at the high end of the market. It started that way, and then over time it's made me, like you said, like it gives you start thinking about existential questions, right? Like I start thinking about, I had interns who were from like Ivy League schools that lasted a week with me because they had no attention span, basic things, and like, how do you create resilience? How do you ask these children to focus for long periods of time? Like one of the things I love about what we do, and I'll never forget Rakan, my son, he was like 5 years old, and he came home, he was crocheting a bag. And he came home and he'd been crocheting a little bit every single day for a few weeks. And he came home and my husband was very like, what is this? Why is my son crocheting bag? That's for girls. And,
Okay.
very upset with me. And I was like, listen, you know, you need to understand that he's super proud. And first of all, when you work on a project a little bit and you keep chipping away, and then you get that product, that is how you build focus and learning that you have to follow through. And it's a confidence that in the end, I produce something with my hands, you know? And he was like, oh, okay, like now I get it, you know?
So what's your vision with this school? Or where is it, by the way?
It's in Nadia Zaal.
Okay.
It's in Nadia Zaal. It's right now, it's approved in September. Hopefully we will be accepting students up to year 6, so primary.
Okay.
It's a small school. Again, it's small by design. You know, we just have 2 classes per year, 12 to 15 kids. It's never going to be like a large school. And my vision, to be honest, it started about my children, their friends, then there's responsibility for other children. But now I mean, it's one school and it's not very big, but I think for me, I would love it to be like a pilot. And in fact, you know, I speak to KHDA about like, you know, let's use this as a research platform. Let's observe these children, you know. I don't know, this is new for me. I mean, when you have someone as an investor who's new to the education system, sometimes it's good because we start to question things from a different perspective. Like when I listen to educators who are like highly respected, to me, like it blows my mind. Basic things, I realize that they're teaching to assess. Okay, and then what? Like, is that the be all and end all? Like the whole system, you know, you need people who are new. Yes, I'm inexperienced, it's true. I put my hands up and say, you know, let's work together. So ideally, I'd like it just to be, you know, of course, for all these children to have a beautiful education journey, but also for it to be a pilot that is funded by a private investor, not a government, you know, because I don't know what I'm doing, to be very honest. I have a great team, but I think I ask the right questions.
And I understood that you also have this philosophy about the teacher being associated with the
children, yeah,
for like a longer period of time, and they go with them across the whole education. What is that? Where did that come from, and what's the philosophy?
So ideally, in again, we're not a full Waldorf school or anything, but just we love that pedagogy. And basically, the idea is that, you know, a teacher is more than just someone that's imparting knowledge, right? They're you know, we say it takes a village to raise children. It does. So that's someone who's kind of like a role model for them. And the idea is that for them to really form a bond and know these children, that main homeschool teacher or that main teacher actually grows with the children. Of course, provided they're qualified to do so. And I've seen it work beautifully. And of course, it doesn't work for, I mean, ideally they say 7-year cycles, you know, because the idea or the thinking is the first 7 years are your like magic of childhood, you're in your imagination, and then you need someone else for the next 7 years who's in your, what we call in your heart, so in your feelings and processing that. And then the last 7 years is someone who will represent the intellect, so who's, you know, highly academic and things like that. But that never works. You know, Dubai, we're an expatriate community. So I've seen it work where it's 3 to 4 years. And these children, they form, the teachers, they understand. I mean, when you see the reports, you know, academics aside, but as a parent, forget as a founder of the school, when I see these reports of these teachers, they really understand my child, like really emotionally, socially, everything. And that takes time, you know, and I think it also helps the learning. Yes, it helps the academics too, because if, you know, you really understand the child, then you can, of course, create, you know, an individualized education plan. You can also have a lot more data to show KHDA when they come about case studies, things like that. Like, what does the progress look like? So, yeah, that's the idea behind it, basically.
I was having this panel a couple of weeks ago, and there where I also highlighted that teachers are no longer, and I would say for quite a while now, have not been vessels of knowledge. Because if they were vessels of knowledge, then online teaching would have worked.
Correct.
And people would have stayed home and the concept of schools would have went away.
Yes.
Whereby the fact of the matter is, Corona was a great test to that concept or that assumption. And that when the restrictions got lifted, people immediately send their kids back to school because we are social beings.
Yes.
And it's not only the knowledge that gets transferred from teachers to kids, the learning of the science or facts, it's way more than that. Yes, it's all the social activities that happen within the classrooms, social activities that happen between the social connection between the mentors and teachers and the kids, and all the other activities that go beyond the classroom, anything to do with arts and sports and all the those carry equal, if not even more, weight in the bringing up of those children and readying them for life, basically. I'd like to ask you the question on your perception about what the future of education. Where do you think, what are the things that the future of education should look at?
I think, I've been looking at many models, and I think, of course there's that discussion always around AI and what does that look like, and we're exploring Century and we've been looking at many other like AI assisted learning platforms, and like you said, like there's people that are saying schools are going to be defunct, and look, whatever you call it, school, micro school, I think that AI definitely has a place because I think just from the things that I've looked at in terms of, showing teachers patterns, identifying patterns, how, creating individualized learning, allowing children to really, go deep in some places. I think AI has a space. Now, we've been a zero tech school. So, a lot of parents that come to me because they view technology, introduction of technology too young, too early is, not the right thing to do. But I do think that AI has a place. I think that teachers, like you say, I think there could be a situation where you have, let's call it the pure academics are taught through with the use of AI. But, I've been to schools in the States to see what they're doing, where there's a lot of, AI, and then there's the project-based learning with younger mentors. My first feeling immediately when I walked around was, but you need, and it's great to have, these young mentors who are, inspiring and full of energy and all of that, and project-based learning and life skills, that's all great. But there's also a place that we shouldn't forget for those wise souls, those older teachers who might not be the best podcasters and might not be the best person to teach the children how to give prompts to the AI. But those wise souls are really important, in my opinion, for like guiding social situations, emotions, that connection to nature. I mean, to me, an ideal learning environment is one where you have project-based learning, you have young mentors, you have the energy, you have the life skills, you have the AI-assisted learning for the academics that we need, you have grounding, nature, that social dynamics, and you have a lot of wise souls who are imparting their wisdom. How big that is, if it's a school, if it's small communities, because I feel like a lot of parents, I mean, for me, the reason why I think we have a lot of demand and the waiting list and all of that is, I've never marketed a day in my life. It's just purely, I think there's this fear that parents and moms have that they're losing control of what values looks like, because you have social media, access to internet, and I think the more you can pull back and say, okay, we're controlling the environment a little bit better, I think that will be better for children's like learning journeys or making them good citizens, not just employability. I agree that like employability, AI, project-based learning, you don't really need an older, wiser teacher to do that. But you need that to impart human values and what it is to be a citizen of the world, or a good citizen of the world, or maybe what I think is a good citizen of the world.
I agree with that. In fact, there was also this panel where we were speaking about AI and education. And my view is AI is a multiplier.
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay. It will enhance our efficiency and our productivity thousands of times.
Yeah.
Even way more than what mobile did, satellite, internet, and so on. But what comes out is basically a magnification of what goes in.
Absolutely. 100%.
And if what goes in is good, that's multiplied thousands of times. If what goes in is bad, that's also multiplied thousands of times. And that's the scary part, in my opinion, when it comes with AI. You know, you've been an entrepreneur since probably finishing your studies. Where did you finish your studies, if I may?
I was in London.
Oh, great. Yeah. So I have a question here.
I was trying to go to Georgetown, but then September 11th happened, and my dad was like, "You come back from Washington now."
Okay.
Yeah,
I had a similar. I had a very similar. I actually was going for an aviation. I wanted to become a pilot.
Oh wow!
And then 9/11 hit.
Oh, God.
And that part of that story is actually in a novel that I've written.
Wow.
It's called The Red Island. Probably you like it since we are of the same generation. It's much to do with UAE back in the early 2000s, just around when 9/11 happened. So I'll expose. We know, as per World Economic Forum research, that 40% of nursery-aged kids now will end up most probably needing to self-feed.
Yeah.
Meaning they will need to become entrepreneurs or follow within entrepreneurial teams. The education system in large is not, it's probably more designed to produce employees, people that take employment as the only option probably today. You know, what do you think should happen to out of your entrepreneurship journey and out of the education journey you went through? What do you think? Where do you think some changes need to happen, if any?
I mean, look, I think first of all, dealing with the younger children, small things like them growing their own food, cooking their own food, those creation of confidence in their ability to create, like at a young age, whether it's, or then the older kids, like Aylan, for example, my 11-year-old, he loves making his own furniture, because and he started selling them, of course. That didn't last too long. But I think building confidence, now how you build the confidence, there's a theory that says, you need to create an environment where questioning is okay. You need to allow them to explore their ability to create with their hands at a younger age, right? So I think that is supremely important. I think that a lot of schools I've been to, you just automatically, the minute, when I walked in here, you can immediately feel that there's an open environment, that it's, you need, that's super important, questioning. As entrepreneurs, what do? We just ask the right questions. So that, building that skill of allowing children to ask the right questions, I think is critical. I mean, I don't know, have you ever watched a program about Summerhill? So Summerhill is probably the world's first democratic school, and it's really interesting to watch. Just to that also, giving students voice, within reason. I know you need structure and all of that, but that's an interesting model to look at. And then I would say, look, questioning, confidence, and then also follow through and grit. I mean, at the end of the day, you need to be able to pivot and deal with a lot of problems, and that follow through, giving children projects where they don't have the reward immediately, where they have to work through it. Giving them responsibilities. I mean, I remember one mom told me once, Yeah, I'm not sending my son to school. She came, a 6-year-old was like cleaning the classroom, and she's like, I'm not paying for him to clean. I'm like, well, unfortunately, that's part of our ethos here. You are. And, one day I hope you'll thank me for it. I think these are small things, but it builds the qualities required. I always tell people, like, when, for example, in the financial crisis, when I was building Narai, I remember in 2009, I had no money. I had post-dated checks issued to contractors. All my clients were not paying me. I had to fire all my staff. There was literally like me, an assistant, and an accountant, just to make sure like I'm just doing the basics. And I was thinking, okay, I have one client. If I reach a certain like level of completion, he's gonna pay me. I know. And that will then I'll slowly I'll get there. And I was thinking to myself, okay, what do I do? I remember I got in my car, and like now when I think about it, I'm like, that's crazy. It wasn't even safe for me to do this. But I went to Msaffah, which is like an industrial area. And I was driving around, and I was like, okay, I need to finish MEP, like these things. And I was driving around, and I was like, are you plumber? What do you do? Are you electrician? Are you da-da-da? Okay, listen, you all come. Like, I'll pay you day rates this. I'll get you food. I don't know what. I took them on the boat. Like, I mean, when I think about it, I'm like, was I insane? But I just thought, this is my end game. This is what I have to do. I'm going to do it. I can't afford a contractor. What do I do? And like, I remember a few guests one day told me on Narai, it's beautiful, but there's like some major mistakes. I'm like, yes, I know. You don't know what I went through to build this. Don't open the walls. And that, I think that's the entrepreneurial spirit, right? Is to like that grit. I'm always questioning, like, how do you instill that? Is there a way to instill that? And I think you can through projects, through, values, encouraging the right environment, you can. And I think it should start at schools, because I think a lot of us entrepreneurs, we had to start deconditioning ourselves because we were conditioned to become better entrepreneurs. Why go through the conditioning in the first place?
Yeah, and I think a lot of the stress I went through in my life was due to the conditioning.
Yes.
I couldn't swallow failures, which are very normal in business. In fact, the statistics say in the last 200 years is that 9 out of 10 businesses fail within the first 3 years, which is something you come to realize as an entrepreneur in a while. And I would actually throw the same on relationships. Actually, even with the relationships, most of them actually fail. But then we are never prepared to accept that or deal with it, and in fact manage through it.
Yeah.
More so than denying it existed or fearing it because you'll get a beating in your hand or get that failed F or whatever in your certificate. And this opened many more questions in my mind.
I think that's why testing, when you say F, test and standardized tests is a whole nother industry. Like, it's a huge money-making industry. But I think the lever to look at how we change education is assessments. And now I understand you need assessments of some form, and everybody, and the regulators need data. I understand everyone's perspective, but that, in my opinion, is where the lever is to change the system. Like, what are we assessing? And I don't have the answers, but I think everyone should start questioning there. Like, are these standardized tests right? Is there a standardized test that looks something different? Maybe we're testing somebody's ability to maneuver through a situation. How do we do that? And maybe there's a place for AI to assess these things, because there's a lot of ways you can change standardized tests, but then it requires perhaps human element, and then you can't scale it. So these are things that I've been questioning myself a lot, and I think there's a place where we rethink what are we assessing, because then teachers will stop teaching to assess, which is bad teaching in my opinion. If they're teaching to assess something other than just whatever CAT 4s or a Acer IBT or all these tests that I've looked at. I mean, listen, I was a victim of, I came from, my mom was like, I did IB, but she made me do A-levels, she made me do SATs, she made me do AP, like every standardized test, you have to do it, For what? Like, I think we need to re-question assessments. as a whole, like, you know, as educators, like globally. And I know there's a lot of discussions around that. And
So I have questions that are still in my mind.
yeah.
I wonder, and I'd like to ask you the questions. Probably you know, you could shed some light on your views. Why isn't well-being
God.
basic knowledge?
Yeah. Listen, I mean,
Why is it not as important as maybe math or physics?
it should absolutely be. And, you know, I mean, even things like teachers, you know, it blows my mind that a lot of teacher training, you know, you have your content, you know, this is the vessel, this is the child you want to deliver your content into. Forget well-being. A lot of them don't. When you talk to a lot of teachers, and it's not part of a general teacher training, is like, how does a child actually develop? Like, how is the brain developing? You know, these basic, they know their content and they know I have to deliver it to this child. I mean, I would go further. They should understand individual, you know, their students, but basic child development and how, you know, why immersive learning is better. Like, why as an adult, when I go on a 3-day training, cognitively it's better for me. You know, these basic concepts, it's crazy to me that teachers don't know it. Then you add to this telling them, are you a trauma-informed teacher, or do you understand your impact as a human being emotionally on this child? Because at the end of the day, you know, a lot of these children, their parents are their world, their teachers are their world. So the use of the language, you know, what are the positive ways in which we can discipline children? And I mean, it's some teachers that I speak to, it's like, these are, in my mind, these should be basics in a school. You know, we are, you know, as an owner of school, I take these children's well-being extremely seriously, and it doesn't seem to be, to answer your question, it should be priority number one. And of course it is. I think every school has their own ethos of what that looks like. And, you know, I mean, safeguarding is your basic, but I mean, I think there's a lot more awareness around it, but there's definitely awareness around it, and it's definitely a demand.
It's better than my days where beating was part of the system.
or this.
Yeah.
You know, but I think it should be part of, like, a mandatory part of the way a school is assessed also.
Yeah.
You know, looking at the framework, for example, it should be a massive part of.
Have you done wealth management? Have you had to do wealth management?
I had to do some wealth.
So
management.
Why isn't it not basic knowledge also?
Yeah, it should be. It should. In high schools, wealth management, like all these basic life skills, definitely should be. Investments, 100%, it should be. And I think it's starting to slowly.
You know, today I had the doubt. I studied economics, so I dwelled also into socioeconomic constructs and concepts. Today, news came out that from multiple sources, so I'm not sure which one is more solid. But basically what it says is that the UAE population is today at anywhere between 1.4 and 1.6 childs per female.
Ah, okay. I wasn't aware of that.
Now, thanks God you are at 4. So you are helping. But that's a very scary number.
It is very scary.
How can...
I would like it to be 5, but...
yeah. How can the education system help?
That's sad.
Because I think with all of there are multiple factors that led to this, dropping down from... I actually looked at the 60s. At the 60s, it was more than 6.
You know, I think our whole, I mean,
and now we are at 1.4.
Wow,
we are, maintenance is 2.1.
That's crazy. That's really made me sad. No, we have to do something.
Yeah, what do you think?
Right. I mean,
what do you think should be done, and how can the education system support?
Again, I think we need to, go back to the construct of, like, it takes a village. What is a village? What does that look like? What is the role? I think I have this discussion a lot with mothers. Oh, you have 4 children. I'm like, yeah, I'd like 5. And they look at me, are you crazy? And I'm like, no, but the thing is, it's not
And you
just
are an
me.
entrepreneur,
And,
and
but
you
it's
are a
not
quite
just-
established entrepreneur.
But it's not just me.
So you were able to manage.
But again, I have a support system, and I think that support system, my mom, my sister, my brother's wives, that's what we need to go back to, I think, and the school of some description can be part of that village, right? And I think, there are things I think about, I know I have families who want to, for example, spend more time at school after school, right? And, we have a very large, a forest school, and it's beautiful, and, parents want to spend more time there, or, a working mom is not there, and the dad is like, oh my God, I don't know what to do with my children. Can I keep them here in school with him present? And, I have this discussion with my team. They're like, listen, they need to be offside, safeguarding, But I'm realizing the more that I look at the school as a premise is that schools need to allow community to form. And, we need to allow, again, parent management is not an easy thing. So, I think a lot of what happens is that the teams, they want the parents to be separate, but that needs to change. I think that really needs to change.
Actually, the way I saw it in the school in Citizens, and especially that it's more of the entrepreneurs school. So there's a lot of entrepreneurial activities starting from age 3, and this whole entrepreneurship curriculum, where we face most of the resistance, beside needing to train the mentors, is the parents, because they are so used to one way of doing things. Okay, and for them to change their mindset to accept the whole lifestyle of the entrepreneur or the way it works, we had to involve them. And the beautiful thing is that many of them are being super supportive, and now we have around 36 teams, which involves parents and students and mentors that are performing entrepreneurial activities. So we need to equally educate the parents, actually. And you see more momentum now from the parents and the love coming from them.
I think if we have strong bonds between school and parents, a real sense of community, I think if we're part of the support system to these mothers and families, if we were genuinely part of the support system, I think more families would have more children. And
since you are in sustainability, that's a big thing. I feel, and please correct me if I'm wrong, that there was this whole view that the world is overly populated.
Oh yeah.
Okay, and that it's there was this whole negative message about needing to slow down as a species and save the earth. And how true is that?
Well, how long do you have?
Because the way I see it is it's a doomsday scenario now.
No. I've done my own, and look, I think with research there's so much out there, and you can go in so many directions. I think at the end of the day, it's not a zero-sum game the way people look at it. I think this earth is highly intelligent, and I think, we learn to cohabit. Yes, of course, do we have to be more mindful of the earth? For sure. But I don't at all think that there's this, in fact, I think it's really scary when you say these figures, and the amount of depopulation that's happening, and the loss that we're seeing in terms of family structure. To me, that is the scariest thing facing humanity. It's not.
Should I give you some numbers?
Environment. No, please don't, because it really scares me. The fact that also children are being conditioned to accept that the family unit is not a central thing, not an important thing. This, again, maybe I think every generation has the same thoughts and same fears, and the world moves on. But I don't know. That's a big one for me.
So what I really hope to see what I think as an element that's not really fairly represented and encouraged in the education system, and I hope to see a bit more of that, is that it's so highly focused on individuals.
And not the collective.
more so than teams, more so than community, more so than family. And I think we are ought to actually emphasize the importance of all of these in order to make it clear that us as individuals, our value is in our contribution to our families and communities, and that those are still the core of society, more so than us as individuals. And I like that as a perspective actually in the Islamic religion.
Yes.
In the Islamic religion, the core unit of society is the family.
Of course.
And in many other religions, it's the same. But I hope that we go back to that and not forget about that while we are looking at our individual selves. Yeah. So I thought of. Do you agree with that?
Absolutely, I agree with it. And one of the things, a lot of parents say to me when they come to the school and they hear, for example, in the morning we have a circle time and they hear what the children are singing and the words, it's very focused. I mean, I think one thing that, again, we're not a Waldorf school. We are inspired by Waldorf pedagogy, and one of the things I love about it is that if you look historically, a lot of Waldorf schools have created missionary entrepreneurs or environmentalists, and that's because there is quite a large focus on, what are those values? What are the songs we're singing? What are the things we're telling ourselves, And it's quite beautiful. You should come and see.
I will. So before we get to the end of the podcast, I wanted to know, where are you in business now and what's your future plans?
Where am I in business? Oh my God! It's.
I'm reminding you of daily tasks
now.
This
brain of mine, every few months I'm like, "Khalas, that's it. I'm not doing any more." And I tell my team, like, if I buy one more piece of land, hit me. So where am I? Like I said, I am in Al-Barari. I still have 200 townhouses I have to deliver to investors that bought when I was the CEO, which I'm doing. Zoha Island is an island, it's a resort and residential community, on the World Island. It's 10 minutes from Jumeirah. That's under construction. I will open to hotel guests, staycation, end of the year. So that's an island resort community. And then, I'm working on another real estate development. School-wise, we're opening the primary school, inshallah, in September. And we're looking, we're studying what the older years will look like. Obviously, we need to go through primary first, but it's in the back of my mind already. And I've got, and there's, we just had the hotel opening yesterday in Ibiza, in Spain.
Congratulations.
Thank you. Yeah, that's, and then, seeing, I think we'll see. I think at the moment, I have a lot of real estate development to do in Dubai, like just between making sure the island gets complete on time. And then let's see, the market is pretty, like you said, it's bubbling right now. So I think I just need to slow down.
Do you feel any of that? Do you see
look, the thing is, touch wood, I think we've created like a really good, the last 5 years, I think the brand equity is quite strong, that when we launch a project, it's a bit crazy what happens, you have brokers sleeping outside the door. I'm like, what? That's crazy. I'm like, thank you. But I've been through the cycles. I know what it's like. I think at the moment there's too much luxury in the market. Generally, I think everyone's trying to build luxury, and it has, of course, I know Dubai is a great place to live, but I think supply in people are saying 26. I say supply will get delayed. So I think by 27, I don't think there's going to be a huge correction, but I think there will be a price correction, 10, 15, 20%. I don't think it will be more than that. But I think the legs of like why everyone in the world wants to move to Dubai is still strong. Now, do I think there's too much supply in a certain segment of the market? Yes. But there's nowhere else like this. Education, infrastructure, legal systems, safety, weather. And people really starting to wake up to that. And I don't think that's stopping anytime soon.
Any words of wisdom?
Words of wisdom. Don't overthink it, just do it.
Amazing. So
Nike.
So thank you very much,
Thank you
Nadia.
for
Truly
having
appreciate it. I'd like to thank the audience for attending the session. I hope they enjoyed it. If they would like to reach out to you, is there a way for them? What's the best way?
I answer my Instagram DM, but you can also get me on my email at anzal@zaya.com.
Amazing. Thank you so much. I appreciate it. And to the next session.